Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. Thanks for coming to our functional medicine discussion group. I'm Dr. Weitz. We want to thank Metagenics for sponsoring us and providing us with this great food. I wanted to tell you about some of our upcoming events. September 27th, Dr. Jessica Tran will be speaking about mold. October 25th, Dr. Felice Kirsch will be talking about polycystic ovarian syndrome. We're working out something on homeopathy for the 29th of November. Please check out my Rational Wellness podcast on iTunes and YouTube. And I'd like to speak for a few minutes about a Metagenics product, give them a little love for sponsoring us. So I don't know how many of you use Metagenics products, but one of the products that we use regularly is their 10-day detox program to help with removing toxins, even detox electromagnetic radiation out of the body. And so it includes a medical food to help support the liver through phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification, as well as some capsules that contain some other specific nutrients. And it's an easy to follow program. Unlike fasting, the liver gets properly supported. It's easy for the patients to follow. So for those of you who want to incorporate detox and aren't doing it right now, it's an easy way to do it. So we're trying to make these events interactive, so we'd like everybody to come up front as much as possible. And
I don't think the mic is working.
If the mic's not working, I gotta hold it closer to my mouth. I'm gonna make it a little louder. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Thanks, Howard. Anybody who would like to ask a question, we want everybody to participate, but if you could raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you so everybody else can hear your question, that would be great. So our topic for tonight is EMFs, which are electromagnetic fields. These include low-frequency radio waves emitted by cell phones and Wi-Fi, magnetic fields, and electric fields. And there are a whole host of symptoms that have been associated with getting exposed on a regular basis to EMFs, including insomnia, anxiety, depression, brain fog, dizziness, hormonal imbalances, cancer risk, we could go on. And here to talk about EMFs and give us the lowdown and explain what we can do to make our homes and our offices safer from EMFs is Oram Miller, who's the expert. He's a certified building biology environmental consultant, an electromagnetic radiation specialist. Oram provides on-site and telephone healthy home and office EMF evaluations, especially for clients who have electromagnetic sensitivities, as well as those who want a healthier home or office. He also consults on the design and construction of new homes or remodeled homes. He writes and speaks extensively on health hazards of EMFs, and his website, Create Healthy Homes, has a ton of information. Oram, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Should I just launch in? Okay. First of all, thank you very much for coming this evening to this talk. How many know what EMFs are? So, including the guys in the back, in the cheap seats. When Ben invited me to speak to a room full of healthcare practitioners, my first thought was great, and my second thought was I'm not going to be able to handle the demand. So I invited my colleagues, because this is the largest concentration of building biologists in the country, here in Southern California. And we have a population that's very much interested in health, as you all know, more so than the rest of the country. I get word from colleagues that they're not that busy. They'd like to be, and I'm so swamped, I can't imagine why they're not. But it's because it's different here. And if you guys ever talk to your colleagues in other parts of the country, you might hear the same thing. Anyway, in our profession, that's true. So I have invited 3 of several more colleagues in the building biology profession Edwin Sachs, you want to stand up? And Edwin's to my left. He's here in Santa Monica, a building biologist, and he's a contractor and does electrical and plumbing. Colin Littlefield is next to him, who has a carpet cleaning business that uses non-toxic products, but also does EMF evaluations. And then William Holland is a certified or master electrician and also a building biologist doing EMF consultations. So all four of us are in the LA area, Topanga, LA, Santa Monica, and I'm in Brentwood here. But I literally go from Santa Barbara to Bakersfield to Palm Springs to San Diego, and fly to other parts of the country occasionally. So we have, it's just nonstop. There are many people in the country and in the world who have sensitivity to these electromagnetic fields and don't know it. Now the word is spreading, and many more people are learning about this through the internet and through word of mouth and through practitioners. So one of the great things about this meeting tonight, and then what will come of this as you spread knowledge of this to your colleagues, to your networking, and why it's so great that you invited me to speak on this, Ben, is you have a lot of patients and clients who have sensitivity to electromagnetic fields. They don't know it and you don't know it because you're not hearing it from your practices. Now, if any of you are MDs, and please don't take what I'm saying here the wrong way, you're not going to hear anything about this from your profession. You all know that. And in the, non-traditional, well, in the integrative medicine professions, there's much more awareness of all the factors that cause illness. So you're all aware of that, and that's what makes all of these special and different. So how many of you know Mary Cordero? Okay, well, Mary's spoken at HIO's meeting more than once, I think. And she is a colleague of mine. I knew her before I even moved here 8 years ago. And she's the prominent expert on chemical outgassing and choosing the right materials for a new building project and a remodel project for chemically sensitive people. And the thing is, and I did that too some years ago, and I think, how many of you guys do that as well? I know, Edwin, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What did you say again?
Mary Cordaro, Cordaro, and it's marycordaro.com, that's her website. And she and two other ladies who are also building biologists are the three experts in the country who handle pretty much 95% of the MCS community, multiple chemical sensitive community, on that issue. Because these people cannot build a new house, they cannot go into an existing house without her help. They are so sensitive. So we work in the same realm with people who are electromagnetically sensitive, and there's a lot of crossover with that. So let me give you a little bit of introduction about our profession. The building biology profession came into being 40 or 45 years ago in Germany, literally as a result of the rapid rebuilding of the housing stock in Germany after World War II. So the devastation of the housing stock and the Marshall Plan meant that the old techniques of daub and wattle construction and post and beam construction that stood the test of time for literally millennia, hundreds if not 1,000 years or more, where houses that were not bombed are still standing today that were built centuries ago. That's not how we build in this country, and with the Marshall Plan, a lot of rebuilding was done with American materials and methods. And what developed as a result of that was illness, environmentally induced illness. And particularly with the tightening up of buildings with the oil embargo. How many remember the 1973 oil embargo? Okay, especially back in the East Coast. And yeah, we're from New York. And so in cold climates, windows that leaked air and heat had to be tightened up, and they put vapor barriers in houses, but that also caused mold. It caused moisture to be trapped. And at the same time, chemical companies and carpet manufacturers were putting formaldehyde and particle board, all these chemicals that were filling the air that was getting more sealed with less exchange in order to save money in terms of fossil fuel expenditure. So as a result of that, we had the the rise of what is known as environmental illness, toxic building syndrome, and people who have sick building syndrome. Now that includes primarily chemical sensitivity, but then EMFs also were starting to be noticed at the same time. Now, it's interesting that because of the pressure of mothers' groups, because of the effect on their toddlers who were crawling around on carpeting that was giving off this outgassing of formaldehyde and other chemicals, the carpet companies quietly changed their formula and took the formaldehyde out. This was in the 90s. We need a similar change with wireless technology in the EMF realm, and that's beginning to happen, so I'll go into that tonight. So many of you may already know, in fact everyone now knows about mold. I was doing an evaluation today and a mold guy showed up, and I saw how he did his work, because I did the same thing before I moved here. When I moved to California from the Twin Cities, where I was for 5 years before that, I decided I didn't like the full scope of our work in our profession, because we do indoor air quality, mold, chemical outgassing, and EMFs. I really love the EMFs, and that's all that I do. There are other people here, Marie Harashu and Dave, what's the guy's name today? Harris, I believe, who's a mold inspector, who, and also the mold guy, what's his last name? Mark Levy, who's a building biologist, by the way, has a twin brother, just like him, in New York, does the same thing. So Mark is here, and his twin brother's in New York, doing the same thing. So there are plenty of people who do mold, who enjoy it. I don't. I love EMFs, and I'm perhaps one of the busiest building biologists in the country just doing EMFs. And I haven't advertised in 8 years. It's just word of mouth, and every year it just gets more and more busy. So thanks in part to many of you. Now, how many of you have had me come to your home and give them some evaluations or referred clients to me? Thank you so much. I honestly have people who tell me so-and-so has recommended me, Dr. So-and-so, and I don't even know who that person is. There is a great interest in this. So what are some of the, what do you guys know about EMF? Aside from those of you who have had me come to your home, those of you who don't, let's just start from there. How many of you, what kind of symptoms are you hearing? Why are you here? What are some of the things that you guys are hearing from your patients?
Cardiac arrhythmias.
Cardiac arrhythmias, okay. And there's a thought that might be associated with electromagnetic fields? There is, but that's a thought that you have?
Yeah.
All right, because that's true. Anybody else? Any other? Yes?
Some of my patients cannot deal with it because of the headaches.
Okay, say it again?
Some of my patients can't deal with it because of the headaches. They actually turn off their Wi-Fi.
So, all right, so you have patients or clients who tell you that when they turn their Wi-Fi off or their cell phone off. Okay. I get several emails and calls a day from all over the country. And the time that I have, the only time that I have to talk to them is while I'm driving to and from the job. So on the way back here from Claremont, I was talking to a lady, I don't even know where she was, somewhere in the United States, and she was telling me exactly that same thing. She just discovered that her headaches go away when she puts them in her cell phone. Now the problem is that's not true for everybody. So we have a situation where those of you who are old enough to remember the days of tobacco, I'm old enough to remember that, in the 50s and 60s, when I grew up, not my parents, but the ring of relatives right around me were chain smokers. And I have clients who say to me, well, we turn the Wi-Fi off at night. And my answer to that is, well, a chain smoker doesn't smoke at night either. But the minute that they wake up, they light up and they're smoking all day long. And my clients, maybe 80% of them, even though 60% of my clients are sensitive, sensitive to these fields, and 2/3 of them are symptomatic. So that's half my clientele. And the other 30-40% are neither. They're just health conscious. I don't deal with the rest of the population unless they live in the same home as one of these people. But what's interesting is even people who are electrically sensitive, they're carrying their cell phone all day long. It's right next to them. And they have no idea how strong this thing is. We're all smoking cigarettes, guys. Okay. I have a client here in LA whose sister went to France and the Wi-Fi was off and said to the host, do you mind turning it on? I want to check my email. And they did. And then the inevitable question came, why don't you leave it on all the time? And the answer, verbatim from the French host, was, oh, you're from the States. You don't know.
What about these little things you put on your phone that supposedly protects you from the Wi-Fi? Do they do anything from the cell phone signal?
Yes. Now, how many of you know what he's talking about? Everybody, virtually.
Now, which ones are better? I mean, there's a big range of different devices that you
Well-
can attach to your cell phone.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So we generally put these in the category of subtle energy devices.
Like, what about this thing?
Okay, so, and
Completely worthless.
no, it's not worthless. It's not worthless at all. How many of you are actually representatives of companies that sell these things? Anybody? Okay. So there are four things that people who read EMF websites learn about. Number one, chips and pendants, right? Number two, Stetzer meters. How many of you know about Stetzer meters, dirty electricity? Okay, or filters rather, versus meter. So dirty electricity is the second thing. Third thing would be smart meters, and now 5G. How many know what 5G is, or have heard about it, or worried about
I've heard
it?
of it, but I don't know what it is.
Hmm?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
We're going to talk about it tonight, which is the fifth generation of cell technology, which is upon us within the next year or two. And then the fourth is earthing mats. How many have earthing mats? I know about that. Okay. Now there is a place for earthing mats. There's a right way and a way, other ways to use them that are not so beneficial, which I will review. So those are the four things that people know about in the general EMF community, and that's fine. And there are some people who are practitioners, and that's all they do, because that's what they know. Now we, in the building biology profession, talk about electric fields and magnetic fields from house wiring, and then radio frequencies, which is 5G, cell phones, Wi-Fi, and then dirty electricity. So those are the four things that we talk about. So we do have some overlap for two of these things. That's the radio frequencies and the dirty electricity. But we also talk about magnetic fields and electric fields, and I'm going to spend a good amount of time on that tonight. And then the chips and pendants, I will comment on now, and the earthing mats. So the way that these subtle energy devices work, as far as we know, is they create a zone of coherence around them by through a technology that traditional science doesn't really understand. But there is evidence of benefit. The way that they work is they change the way the body, the mammalian physiology, responds to these noxious influences. Does that make sense? That's how they work. Because the reason why my profession poo-poos it is because the engineers in our profession don't see any change with our devices when we're in the present. And I did this at the Cancer Control Society. There were a whole number of people who were selling different things, and I brought my, in my car I have a Wi-Fi router and a cordless phone base unit. I brought the cordless phone base unit, plugged it in, and turned this on about 3 feet away and showed everyone what the sound was and what the number was, what the reading was. And then I turned this off and I said, no, put your chips on. And like 5 or 6 people did that, and they were all excited that they were going to finally have some evidence to prove what they have been telling people. And I turned this on and it was just the same. And that was what I expected, and they were quite upset and disappointed. But I said, that's not how these things work. They don't change the signal. What they change is the way your body reacts to it. So thermography shows cooling effects, blues and greens, right? Or let me turn that around. So when you use a cell phone next to your head, you'll see red, orange, and yellow temperatures. I'm not sure which is the hottest, but that's been proven. But when you put a chip on or in the phone, you don't have that anymore. You have blues and greens. You have cooling of the tissues. How does that happen? We don't know. Secondly, red blood cell analysis, live blood cell analysis, which the MDs don't recognize, but alternative medicine practitioners do. So you will have rouleau formation in the presence of these phones. You know what that is? All right, it's stacking, like the coins. It's a French word, I believe it means stacking of coins. So the red blood cells get, they lose their slipperiness, and they stack on top of each other. They get sticky. And so these flat biconcave corpuscles that are meant to carry oxygen no longer have the surface area to carry oxygen to the same degree, so you have some deoxygenation going on. It's a sign of stress. It's a consequence of stress. It's not a phenomenon unto itself. It happens because the body is literally under stress. So when you put a chip or pendant on this, they get slippery again. And that's
What do you have on your phone?
I'm getting to that. And then the third thing is, there's a lab on Long Island, and there are probably others around the country, who have taken, for several of these chip manufacturers, and had two groups of rats, one with a phone, the other without, and they found evidence of damage, which is interesting because the National Toxicology Program has verified this just recently. You may know that, about, with rodents with cell phones, which has gotten some mainstream attention. But anyway, that was done many years ago, and then they had two groups of rats, both with a Motorola cell phone, one with the chips and the other one without. And they do this with any chip manufacturer that pays them to do this work. And so what they found was less DNA damage in the group that had the chip. How do you account for that? So I have to turn to my colleagues who are engineers who say these things are worthless and say, well, we have evidence that's not psychosomatic that there is some value to this. However, the analogy that I give my clients is, if you imagine that the sources of EMFs in your home, especially Wi-Fi, are like ashtrays for burning with cigarettes. And there really is a correlation between this, except for the fact that these devices are silent in terms of the RF transmission. There's no odor like there is with tobacco, and the EMFs are invisible. So these meters make the invisible visible and the inaudible audible. So the analogy that I use is, if you have a room with, imagine you have a room with 4 ashtrays with burning with cigarettes, and a guy says, I can sell you an air purifier that clears the room of smoke. Well, it does to a certain degree, but the ashtrays continue to produce the smoke. We know how to find the ashtrays and eliminate them, which we do with magnetic fields and electric fields, which I will cover. But when it comes to radio frequency, RF, that part of the EMFs that are up in the high frequency spectrum, that's a completely different issue, because we're talking about people who buy these things, bring them into their home, and want to continue to use them. And it's a difficult sell for those who are not symptomatic. If my clients are symptomatic, they already know that they need to make a change. It's tough to get the rest of the family to change, and I was dealing with that on the phone with another person, trying to figure that out for them, long distance. But
can you define what you mean by radio waves? What devices are you referring to?
any wireless device. So that would mean cell phones, printers, the whole Internet of Things, all the connectivity that we have within the home and outside the home. So, so all of those things are, they have a significant impact. It's completely silent and odorless and invisible. And a lot of people are able to heal the damage that occurs. So how many of you know of Martin Blank? Dr. Martin Blank, who was a researcher at the University of Columbia in New York. And he wrote the book Overpowered. And he told us when he spoke at the Cancer Control Society a couple of years ago, and he was also a keynote speaker at one of our building biology meetings, so I knew him. And he said, I was a skeptic until I did my own research. And then I found DNA fragmentation. I found interference with mRNA and tRNA. And the other Martin Pall, P-A-L-L, well, Martin Blank passed away. He was retired, he was tenured, he was retired, he had moved out of the country, he was living in Vancouver, and then he could speak freely. That's along the Columbia. And he did. He was on Coast to Coast. He wrote this book, Overpowered, and I don't know how many of you have seen the 4-minute video that he did with Camila Reese at the International EMF Alliance. spearheading a group of 200 scientists who came out against smart meters 2 years ago. And now there's a group of scientists, another 200 scientists around the world who are saying, whoa, we have to slow down with 5G, with 5th generation technology, because it's untested. We know the effects actually. So I was invited to speak at the Left Forum in New York City 2 years ago. Camilla Reese put that together. And so in the morning, and you can see a 45-minute synopsis of the 2-hour presentation on my website, createhealthyhomes.com. My cards are right here, createhealthyhomes.com. So on the homepage under recent EMF news, if you scroll down, you'll see a link for the Left Forum in New York City. And this weekend is the West Coast Left Forum, which is a political thing. And it was political back then, and is every year there, but Camilla got us in for an EMF seminar. So we had 2 seminars, 10 till noon. It was Drunk on Wireless, and it had Martin Paul, Martin Blank, Professor Carpenter, David Carpenter, an MD actually, who works with Cindy Sage. Now, how many know about the Bioinitiative Working Group? And Cindy Sage, well, I know you know. But Cindy Sage is in Santa Barbara, and she's an EMF consultant. And she is the co-editor and co-leader of that group with David Carpenter, who's an MD at the University of Albany. And these guys, these physicians who are doing this at great personal risk.
So what do we do to shield ourselves from the cell phone? What should we do?
It's not as easy as that. You have to understand what the effects are because these are so integrated into our lives now.
But you shouldn't keep it in your pocket, right?
Well, so in general,
You should speak through the speakerphone.
yes. So, all right, so to answer the question, increase distance, reduce use, and favor hardwired connections whenever possible.
But nobody's got a hard wire with their cell phone, right?
Yes. We have solutions for almost everything. Anything that we have the capacity to provide a hardwired solution for, we have. And the reason we have this is because, remember, half of my clients are electrically sensitive. They cannot be in the presence of these things. They'll react. So what are the symptoms? Memory loss, brain fog, headaches, ringing in the ears, numbness and tingling, insomnia, memory loss. These are the symptoms that we hear on a routine basis in our world. And not all of them are due to EMF, but a lot of them are.
So there's no super duper shield you can put on your cell phone?
Well, there is, and that's here. And in fact, we have 2 individuals in the back, William and Monica, his business partner. Monica, you want to read? Yeah. So Monica and William have come up with a cell phone case that is custom made to fit your phone. So I had to tell them exactly what model I had. So you notice that it matches up here, same size, and there are 2 layers of shielding material in the front and 1 layer in the back.
What kind of material is that?
It's a metallic, the foil. You can see it if you look in here, but it's a foil. You see that?
Okay.
And now, there is a reduction, 90%, it depends on how you measure. For those people who need to use a phone and want to protect themselves from the beacon signal and all the handshake that these things go through, literally every minute or 2, round the clock. You put this on your bedside table, you have a full blast of RF energy every couple minutes throughout the night. You don't know
I
that.
interviewed Daniel DeBon on my podcast, and he has a company called DefenderShield.com. And
Yeah.
he has some special shields for your cell phone and some of the other stuff.
There are many companies on the market. Defender Shield is one. Less EMF sells.
Which are the best one? Which is the best one to get?
Well, let's talk about that. Now, Ben's getting to know me. We tried to do an interview and then my internet kept, so I'm going to go to his house and do it for his blog. But the thing is, I'm reluctant to give you a pat answer because I don't want.
We want to know.
No, but here's the problem. I don't want you guys to think that there's a simple panacea.
Well, what's the best one we can get?
I don't want you to be using these things as much. That's
We're
the
gonna
point.
use cell phones.
Well,
You
but,
can make
wasn't
your
gonna stop
point
using
without
cell
holding out.
The best way is to turn it off.
well, see, what I'm trying to do here tonight is to compress into, it'll be a couple of hours, what I spend 6 to 8 hours doing. Those of you who have had me come to your home, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I know you got tons of other information, but this is just something.
Well, yeah, but the point is, this is our generation cigarettes, and we're going to find out, we're going to come full circle, and we're going to be moving back to hardwired connections in our homes. These things are far more dangerous than we realize. It's not a simple matter of putting a chip on it, I'm sorry, or putting it in a case and then just going ahead and holding it next to your head, sorry. Because I don't recommend that. You have to have it at least out here. But when you're home, why do you still use this thing at home? Because you're not feeling the symptoms, and it's convenient, and everyone else does it, and
So if I hold it like this, does that make any difference? And if I hold it?
yes, it does, ma'am. It does markedly decrease. But the amount of radio frequency exposure that you have at this distance is still too high. So my profession has guidelines. We have magnetic fields, electric fields, radio frequencies, and dirty electricity. And we have safe exposure guidance that the building biology profession has developed in Europe, and so as not to reinvent the wheel because they're so good at what they do, of looking through the research. We just said, can we adopt your standards? And they said, sure, with our blessing. So we use the same standards that they do. And the FCC says 10 million microwatts per meter squared are safe, or 1 milliwatt per square centimeter. Sounds like a nice little number, but if you use, and I don't have enough hands here to show you, and we didn't, I do have a PowerPoint presentation which is on my website where you can see all of this. But there is a conversion table. So you'll see there that actually these countries in Europe are considering the levels that the FCC uses as way too high, and there are countries that have much lower levels. But you can't go too far before getting into the suggested levels of improvement, because you run smack into what we just said a moment ago. What you said is right. We're not going to get rid of these. The genie's out of the bottle, and there are people in the EMF community who say everyone should get rid of their cell phones. And I'm thinking, come on, guys, get real. It's not going to happen. But we can make them more safe. Now, I'm old enough to remember what it was like to go through life in the 50s and 60s when tobacco was everywhere. And some of you, those of you who are older, remember what I'm talking about. And anybody who goes to Europe still sees it, or other parts of the world. But the difference is they know. I've spoken to 3 French-American people, clients of mine, and told them this story that I heard from this client. And they said, yeah, that's true. We do know about this. But the difference is we still use cell phones, but at least we know. It's informed consent. We are aware of the dangers, and we do try and minimize them. So what we recommend, to answer your question, is when you're home, as a precaution, especially if you're symptomatic in any way, you need to reduce the toxic load. Everyone in this room understands that, okay? You have to reduce your toxic load. So one of the big toxic loads is radio frequencies from these devices that are constantly around us. So what do they include? And it's just more and more every month. More and more companies are putting a radio frequency, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth transmitter into their devices, and then creating an app that goes on your smartphone so you can monitor what? When your toothbrush is ready?
Your sleep, your heart rate. What about using all these sleep devices?
Okay,
What about the Oram ring that you put on and you sleep with?
we highly do not,
What about these things on your wrist? The same thing to monitor your sleep.
we highly do not recommend that you wear, I won't mention brand names, we highly recommend you do not wear a smartwatch. We highly recommend you never sleep with a wireless device near your body or near your bed.
So any of the devices to monitor our sleep are not good.
When you say near, how far away? Like
The next room.
Next room,
Thank you.
honestly. Yeah, because it's a toxic load. I'll go into the science some more, because you guys are practitioners. Martin Paul is at the University of Washington State in Pullman, north of Portland, in Oregon. And he has done work, how many have heard of his work with voltage-gated calcium channels? Calcium channels are the way that cells communicate with each other. Voltage-gated calcium channels on the membrane of the cell. Low energy, low exposure, below the thermal effects from cell phones alters this. And so cells do not communicate appropriately.
What kind of electrical force is given off by a CPAP machine?
A CPAP would have magnetic fields from the motor, which drop off quickly and exponentially within a foot. There's an electric field from the voltage, the 120 volts in the cord, so we have to deal with that. And now they're putting Wi-Fi in the mouth. And there's a transmitter right here. I'm not kidding, to monitor the functioning of the Wi-Fi, of the CPAP machine. Yeah. And now, up until recently, we've been okay with the CPAP by shielding the cord, replacing the cord with a shielded cord, moving it as far away with as long as...
What's a shielded cord?
Hold that question, I'll answer that. I don't want to lose the train of thought.
Okay.
Thank you. The magnetic field can be moved far enough away that that drops off so you don't have that near your head with the plastic cord. And everything was good for the clients of mine who have that, because both, it might be the wife who needs this, but her husband's laying next to her who's got the CPAP machine and she can't get the rest that she needs because the electric fields are there, which I will explain. But now they're putting this wire, this monitor in the cord, in the hose, so that there's a pressure regulator in the mouth to monitor the pressure and create changes in the pressure that comes here. And so that's done through a wire. And that wire brings up 120 volts, guys. So we're done. I can't help those people. And I say, you have to go back to the older model. They say, well, they don't have it anymore, or I can't do it, or my insurance won't cover it, or blah, blah, blah. And it was very frustrating in that regard. And now they're putting Wi-Fi into those machines, and they're live all night long. I have clients who can get off those things by reducing the electric fields in the room.
What about when all the mandatory chips are implanted into our heads?
We're hoping to avoid that. Let me go back to the beginning, because I've done what I always do. When I'm in a client's home, and those of you who have hired me know that I'm pretty good about this, I have this book in front of me and I go through it systematically, page by page. With you guys, I'm just so excited to share knowledge that and there's a lot to cover. And so let me just go systematically through some introduction here. So magnetic fields and electric fields are two aspects of the fields that come from electricity traveling through a wire. So you know from high school and college physics, whenever you have current going through a wire, there's a magnetic field that flows in a certain direction. It's a clockwise direction if you look from behind. And that dissipates with distance. And we have that with every single cord that's in the house. So this is called Romex. And you can't see this well, but there's a black wire and a white wire and a bare or green insulated ground wire. The black wire carries the current to the load, and it has the voltage. And all voltages is pressure that pushes this current through. And then you have the load, which could be a light bulb. And then you have the return current coming back on the white wire, the neutral current. And then this is the ground. And the only purpose of the ground is to trip the breaker in case there's a short and a cut in the insulation where this hot wire might touch the metal casing of the toaster, and you could get electrocuted if you touch it. So it'll trip the breaker before that happens, right?
Well, what happens when the ground is the neutral? Does it trip the breaker?
No.
Okay.
Well, that's a wiring error. So
But is there some advantage to having a three-pronged cord? Doesn't it provide some protection?
yeah, a three-prong plug would have a ground on it. And in Europe,
So what does the ground do to help us?
the ground is there.
Tripping the breaker.
Well, that's the main reason. But there's another advantage. The presence of the ground wire bleeds off the electric field, which I haven't gotten to yet. So let me just show you magnetic fields here.
Okay.
Here, Ben, can you hold that right there? That's going to get hot. So right here,
I'll let you know which one.
You shoot an arrow at my head.
So this is what we call, this is a Gauss meter, named after Dr. Gauss, G-A-U-S-S, in Austria in the 1800s. And right now, there is not a very strong magnetic field here. We like magnetic fields to be below 1 milligauss. Right now it's 0.1. Now watch what happens when I separate these wires. Magic. Why did that happen? Because there's a magnetic field around each one of these. But when I put them together,
They cancel each other out.
who said that? Well, you know.
So the two wires cancel each other out.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Now, this is a clamp. So the gentleman in the back row there, the electricians, and I work together quite often, and once a week on the average, or more. And so we will find wiring errors that are causing cancer. I have clients who have cancer from wiring errors in their home, several. And when I mentioned that to Larry Gusk, who's in Ventura, and Diana Schultz from Florida, we were doing some taping. We have great videotapes on our Building Bocce website now. And we recorded them a year ago in Boulder. And we were having dinner one night, and I said, guys, I'm seeing cancer. And they both said, yeah, me too.
Do you have that
From-
light on? It's really very bright.
Oh, sorry, okay. Yes, turn it in such a way that, okay, or put it behind me or behind you. So, I just want to show you that when I put this clamp, you can't see this, but this says 0 amps, 0 net current. So when I put it around this one here, it's 0.3, because that's the amperage that's being drawn by this light bulb here, 1/3 of an amp. And same on the other. So there's 1/3 of an amp, but the current is going in opposite directions. And when I unplug it, just hold that. There, okay. There is 0 current now, and the magnetic field is gone no matter how I position this. So, so if you have power lines overhead that are separated, you're going to have magnetic fields coming down to your yard and into your house, depending on how much current is up here. And why are these lines separated outside here in Santa Monica and all over the country? Because they're not insulated. And why they're not insulated? Because there's too much heat. It would burn up the insulation. So they leave them bare and they keep them apart so that the wind doesn't knock them together. But then you lose your cancellation. Now what's another situation inside of a home built in the 1920s and 30s where you'll see this?
Knob and tube?
Knob and tube wiring. Knob and tube. And I won't take the time to dig it out, but I have a cylinder, a ceramic cylinder in here, a tube. That was how they had the creosote insulated wires. They stood them off from the wooden beams so it wouldn't get hot. And then to get it through, they slide that through a cylinder. So again, the wood would not catch on fire because of the heat. But you had separation, and you have huge magnetic fields and huge electric fields in homes that are still wired with that kind of wiring where it's live. So you need to have these together. That's rule number one. And also those need to be equal. And the way that you accomplish that is that in the junction box where you have several circuits coming in, you must keep the neutrals separated and not have them connect to the grounds. This is rampant in Southern California. 50, 60, 70% of homes in Southern California have wiring errors and have magnetic fields right now. I said to Edwin a year ago, we could work till we die doing this every day, and we will not even make a dent in the number of homes that have wiring. In fact, wiring errors are being created today, as we speak, in hundreds of homes. Now, what's the saving grace that's going to prevent that from happening in the future? Actually, starting about a year or two ago, arc fault breakers. Arc fault breakers. So there are these breakers that France has been using for decades, and Australia have been. They don't have this. Well, they go by different names, but I don't know what ARC stands for. But it's you know how when you put this under a carpet, you walk on it, and you fray the insulation, and you could catch fire. Well, the minute that happens, before the fire can even start, it'll trip the breaker. because these things are so sensitive. That's what it's for. It's to prevent fires. But everyone hates them because, you or your cleaning lady come and put the vacuum cleaner in, turn it on, and all of a sudden the breaker trips because of they're so sensitive. But anyway, so the reason I'm bringing this up, and Ben said before, as he was reading some of the articles that I've written, he said, what's the difference between magnetic and electric fields? This is the big part of this that is unknown in the general EMF community. And Joe Ricola, who I've got to know since a year ago when Nick Pinnell put us together, I'm in Nick's book, The Tin Hat Guide to EMFs, and Nick knows Joe, and Nick said, Joe, you need to meet Oram Miller. So we knew of him, of course, and so we started talking, and I've helped him with his understanding of EMFs. He had a building biologist edit his EMF website 10 years ago, Vicki Warren, one of our prior executive directors. So I've now been, behind the scenes giving him a lot of information to help with his knowledge of this. So in May, he sent me an article and said, I want to run an article on electric and magnetic fields that you guys in the building biology profession are talking about. And this interview that you have with Zirin Kenny, the blog, you guys know about that? He interviewed me a year ago, and it's all about electric and magnetic fields. So he wrote a draft, and I finished it. He said, please complete this for accuracy. And he published it, and 150,000 people have seen that. And my website traffic went through the roof. And so a lot of people are beginning to learn about electric and magnetic fields. And why is that important? Because in the general EMF community, where they're focusing on smart meters, cell towers, 5G, dirty electricity, earthing mats, and chips and pendants, they don't know about this other stuff, which is very prevalent. Now, magnetic fields are not so prevalent outside of the Southwest. The wiring errors are not as prevalent in older construction because the electricians were more careful, and because they're following code. This is all part of the code. You can also have current on your water pipe, and we have that here, but not everywhere. There are a lot of neighborhoods where they put a dielectric union. I have it in here. It's basically a plumbing fitting that has a ring, and Edwin does plumbing as well as electrical, so he puts those in, and there are other plumbers that we know who have helped us with that. So we can stop that flow of electricity. You can have a major magnetic field coming up right underneath your chair, your bed, your living room. I have a healthcare practitioner back in Minnesota who said to me, I never liked living in this house, and I just feel depressed and tired and for the whole time we've lived here. And it was right underneath the kitchen floor and right under their bed. And it was an amp and a half of current. We put the plumber back there, put a dielectric union, this is like 10 years ago, and she said immediately her symptoms went away.
I want to drill down on a cell phone a little bit more. I know you got a lot of stuff to cover, but what is the best of the worst ways to use a cell phone? Like, we're going to use I know it's better if we don't use the cell phone, turn it off all the time, but if we are going to have the cell phone, does it matter if you're using the Bluetooth? Let's say you want to listen to a podcast. Does it matter if you plug it into your car and you listen to it through the speakers, or if you put a little headset on? If you put it in your pocket for a guy, does it matter? Or a woman, is it better to put it in your front pocket or your back pocket or your top pocket or your right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's better not to have it, but what's like,
Okay.
what's the worst things that we should?
Well, okay, so you're smoking cigarettes. I want all of us to know that we are now smoking cigarettes when we use these things.
Maybe cell phones are on right now.
Everybody's cell phone is on.
Who's not?
Thank you. Good. All right, I appreciate that. Well, that's out of courtesy. And by the way, I'd like to do a
By the
demonstration
way, I
here.
don't even know what it means to put it on airplane mode.
Okay. Well, what do you do when you fly on an airplane? You're supposed to.
They hardly ever fly.
Well, all right. But you're supposed to. There's a. I'll show
I
you.
guess I turn it off.
Well, no.
Settings.
Yeah, settings. They make it easier. I'd like to show you something here. Can you hold this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to take my.
Look at the mic.
Okay. Which one's my? That one. Okay. I'm going to take my cell phone out of airplane mode, And I want you to hear, and now if you'll just hold it right about there. So I want you to actually hear, and I want to tell you what the number is here when I take this out of airplane mode. Put the microphone on. Do you hear all that? All that crackling? That's my cell phone reconnecting with the tower. I just got a email. Okay? Now, if this is up to your head, so I'm seeing here 250,000 microwatts per meter squared. Now, the FCC says 10 million is safe, but they're using very outdated research done by the military 60 years ago that only took into account heating effects. We say 10 microwatts per meter squared is the level you should shoot for. We say 1,000 microwatts per meter squared is an extreme biological risk. So on my website, createhealthyhomes.com, if you click on Building Biology Evaluation Guidelines, which is the 8th link down, and then you'll see a description there, and then click on the word here. That brings you to a 4-page document, which is from the Germans, translated into English by a German-Canadian lady who went through our program, and we're used with their blessing. And on the first page there, you'll see EMFs. So we have, this is for sleeping airs. We have electric fields, magnetic fields, and radio frequencies, and we have 4 columns. We have extreme anomaly or concern, slight, severe, slight, and no concern. We want to get our clients out of the extreme and severe columns for all these EMFs, and not in this, and out of this extreme and severe, and into slight. Can someone just like answer that or put it on? This is just distracting. Thank you. And we want to get our. Now, guys, that was because I took it out of it. How many, those of you who have had me come to your house, I don't even bring this inside. You can't get a hold of it. It's in the car because I don't know whether the person I'm going to be working with is electrical sensitive or not. I leave it in the car, and I don't want to be disturbed.
So how much does it decrease if it's a foot away, 3 feet away?
Marginally.
Okay, so 3 feet away, it's not going to make any difference?
No. Well, okay, so radio frequency transmissions drop off exponentially with distance. They do decrease rapidly with distance. So in the first 2, 3, 4 feet, they dropped 90%. No, not quite that much. But the thing is, where you don't get to a level that the research has shown is safe until you're literally 10 feet or more away. That's essentially the next one. Okay? So I would like to go through the research, but whatever time I get to tonight about that, whatever I get to about that, this is just the beginning. I hope this is just an introduction, and that all of you take the time to go to createhealthyhomes.com and the websites of these other gentlemen, get their cards, and talk to them, and you're going to need all of us, an army, to take care of the clients and patients that I know many of you are going to consider referring to us, because we can help take care of the environmental toxins that are keeping your clients from progressing as far as they should. Because you all do great work, you have good nutraceuticals, good therapies, but I work with a lot of people who plateau. I mean, they tell me that their healthcare practitioner has recognized that there has to be something in your environment because you're not getting well past a certain point. So to answer your question, then, there really are 2 groups of people. There are the people who are symptomatic, who call me up because they have symptoms or they're health conscious. They don't want to become symptomatic. And these are the people who seek all of you out because you are healthcare practitioners and you're primarily alternative healthcare practitioners, integrative and so on. So you already have this orientation. So many of the people in your practices have pretty serious toxic loads from EMFs in their home.
So we have cell phones. How about laptops? How about people
Well,
with laptops?
so-
on their lap?
All right, so for people who are toxic, who are sick, who've manifested disease, who've gotten that far in the process, they really need to understand that there are options, there are hardwired options. And that's what I literally spend 6 to 8 hours with a client, going through their home carefully, each room, and we look at all 4 EMFs, the magnetic fields, electric fields, radio frequencies, and dirty electricity in the places where people sit, sleep, and stand. This is what we teach our students. I'm going to Santa Fe day after tomorrow for our annual seminar, where I'll be teaching that very thing. We're teaching 30 students this year, we do this every year, to go through this program and go back home wherever they're from and do this work. So we're multiplying
How
ourselves.
about the radiation from a TV? What if you have a TV in your bedroom?
Okay, so TVs produce magnetic fields, the old style, the cathode ray tubes, they produce magnetic fields that extended 6 or 8 feet, or 4 to 6 feet in all directions. The flat screen TVs don't have that. Their magnetic fields come out 6 inches and that's it. Plasma TVs are worse than the LEDs and LCDs. One of the things that the plasmas have is huge amounts of dirty electricity.
So LEDs are safer.
Well, that's only one form of EMF. Remember, there are 3 others. So, and honestly, this is what you have to do in your differential diagnosis. So we have electric fields from the cord, but I haven't gone into this yet, but electric fields come out 6 or 8 feet from a plastic cord, just like this. And you're usually the bed is far enough away from that. But what's new with TVs now is Wi-Fi. Okay, so years ago when I would go...
Smart TVs.
Yeah, smart TVs. So all smart TVs now come with Hulu, Netflix, and wired or wireless. You can set it up, by the way. And it was the case up until a few years ago that Samsung, when I plug in an Ethernet cable into the back of their TV and the other end into a network adapter, which I have in the bag here, but it goes into an outlet because the router's upstairs. And this person didn't have Ethernet cables in the wall, which is the best. But if they don't have that, and they're not sensitive to dirty electricity, you can put in a network adapter, which has 2 of these things, comes in a box. And you put one into the room that has the router into an outlet, not into a surge protector, and then there's a 6-foot Ethernet cable that comes in the box. Plug that into the router and into the box, the little device, and it puts the internet on the electrical wire. And you could put the other one somewhere else in the house and then have the cable going into your laptop or even your iPad or iPhone, not Android, iPad or iPhone with an adapter, which I have right here. And then you can put it in airplane mode, and you can do everything that you can do on Wi-Fi without smoke, no smoke. You can do that. And then if you have a Mac Air with a USB-C connection, we have an adapter for that. So we have...
Saying you could safely have your phone near your bed, use it as like an alarm?
Yes.
If it's plugged in and not on Wi-Fi?
Yes. We have adapters that allow you to have an Ethernet connection to any of a number of things. Okay? Because the Mac Airs now are so thin, they don't have a jack this big anymore. They're too thin, right? So we have an adapter to USB, USB-C for Mac Air, MacBook Airs, the new ones, and also lightning ports for your iPad and iPhone. And then you have to put this in airplane mode, because otherwise you haven't done yourself any favor. You understand? Okay, because this is what gets you on the internet. Because when you put this in when you make this safe, you're putting it on airplane mode. So now you can't communicate with the world. But this allows you to do that. You can't receive or make a call, and you can't communicate with anybody by text who is a non-Apple user. Those are the green texts, because those go to the tower from your friends who have Androids. But the blue texts come through your Wi-Fi. And whatever you can do on Wi-Fi, you can do with this. So I have a client in Malibu. She is happy as a clam because she's extremely electrically sensitive, and she and her assistant sit on her lanai all day long and do business on her iPad all day long. And she can do that because I told her that she can use this. So she's very happy.
Can you share some of those resources, Kendra?
Sorry?
Could you share some of those?
Yeah, where do you buy that?
Researches.
Resources.
Resources, oh, okay. Amazon. So on my website, Create Healthy Homes, if you click on the 8th link down, EMF products and order codes, and then on that page, I have a number of icons for companies that I work with, that I'm an affiliate with. I don't sell any of this stuff, I just link through, but I do get a few dollars if you go that way, but you can go directly to Amazon. I've created links though, so you know exactly what device to get. So on the Amazon page, you'll see a whole category of things. And then on the safer use of computers page, there is a section on magnetic fields for computers, electric fields for computers, radio frequencies, and dirty electricity. And in the radio frequency section, there you'll find detailed information on all of this, and I explain it very carefully.
Now, where does the other end of that plug into? So it plugs into your iPhone, and how does it get the?
Okay. So
this is if you have your internet connection hardwired, and then you're plugging that into the internet connection somehow? So either your cable or your...
yes, so I have an LG, so this is not going to fit, but this would go into your lightning port of your iPad or iPhone. And then the other end of this, you would plug in an Ethernet cable. And the other end of the Ethernet cable, that's the trick. How are you going to get this to your router? Because the router has the jack where this goes, right? So a router has two kinds of networks, wired and wireless. Now, it's possible to program the router so that the Wi-Fi gets turned off, but the jacks are still active, as opposed to just unplugging the whole thing. Okay? So you can turn a wired router into a wireless router. Well, it does both, right? Because if you plug in an Ethernet cable, that works. But you also have Wi-Fi, and you see the little Wi-Fi light on the front. So, and that fills the room with toxic frequencies. So again, as you're getting to learn more about this, what I'd like to encourage all of you as practitioners to do is to think of this, because this is how I think about it, in two ways. Number one, you have clients and patients of yours and clients of mine who are sensitive to this stuff, who are symptomatic. And I go into the assumption that they could be sensitive to and symptomatic from the fields that I'm measuring and trying to clear up for them. With you, it's much more eclectic, but you see what I'm saying here. So that's one group, and that's the predominant group that our profession works with, is electrically sensitive and symptomatic people. And then there's the larger group of people who are not sensitive or symptomatic, but they're health conscious, and they want to do the same thing. Then there's everybody else, and they're the family members of these people who you see and I see, and the rest of the population, who the activists and advocates are working with to try and help them. I don't even go there, I don't have time for it. Because a lot of people say to me, well, what about my brother? What about my grandkids? What about my daughter? And you're using iPads at school, and on and on and on and on. Because they're waking up to this and realizing we have a health crisis. I won't take the time to go into it anymore, but the European countries, 10 countries in the world are...
Now, how bad is it to have your iPad on your lap?
It's very dangerous.
Okay, is there a shield to protect that, or should you just never do that?
We recommend that pregnant women not use wireless devices at all.
Okay.
Let me expand on that for a moment.
Like if you had one of those shields covering you, does that protect you at all?
To some degree, Ben, to some degree.
Completely wrapped in tin foil?
So on my homepage of my website, Camilla Reese Deborah Davis, Environmental Health Trust, held a press conference with two MDs, Hugh Taylor, an obstetrician from Yale, and Martha Herbert, who was a pediatrician from Harvard, in the morning at a hotel in Baltimore, on a Sunday to talk about the presentation that they were going to give at the American Academy of Pediatrics meeting that afternoon. Now, they were in the graveyard, slot, where half the people were gone to the airport and had left, but still, they did speak about it. This a couple of years ago. And so Hugh talked about studies as an obstetrician that have been done to show that if a woman uses a cell phone during her pregnancy, there is a statistically significant increase in cognitive impairment and behavioral problems with their children when they get into their teen years. We actually have researchers in Europe who call this, Salford calls this the largest biological experiment ever conducted on the human race. There are researchers in Europe who say that if a child uses nothing but a cell phone as the only means of communicating with their friends and family from the time that they're 7 or whatever, that there's a
Which
chance
is 99% of all kids.
now, well, with one exception, I'll get to that in a second, that this generation, that generation, will probably develop full-blown Alzheimer's and dementia in their 40s. That's what we're staring at, okay? How many of you know Duncan, what's her name? The psychiatrist here in LA, Virginia Dunkley, who's written a book about the behavioral problems and addiction that kids have. France voted in December last year to ban cell phones in all schools starting next month in the whole country of France. Okay, first country in the world to do that, and it's optional for the.
We're now using coal burning cell phones.
It's our Wi-Fi use is through the roof over here because I have a client who told Edwin and I, maybe, I don't know if you were in the room when she said this, she works for a cell phone company and she's seen documents that, I won't go any further, talk to me in private, because this is on tape. So, but they know.
Is it true if you use a cell phone in a car because it's a metal, it actually amplifies the signal and makes it worse?
Yes, the signal will reflect off the inside and accumulate and increase.
So you're trying to not hold the phone up to your ear, so you're trying to use it through your Bluetooth, but it's actually worse?
Well, the problem is the genie's out of the bottle. We're not going to go back. Okay, so what I tell my clients is, it's actually a blessing. It's actually a blessing to work with as people who are symptomatic. Not because I wish anyone to have any difficulty with this, but because I don't have to work as hard to convince them that this is valuable for them to pay attention to. They have no choice. The problem is their spouse or their teenage kid is bucking them and causing a huge amount of problems. I'm a mediator in a lot of these families that I go into. And I can time it on my watch, 20 minutes to the moment, from the time that I get there, from where the husband is like, what's this crazy scheme going to cost us? And another, my crazy wife with all her symptoms. And so they realize that I'm impartial, that I don't take sides, I have some important facts and information, and they turn around. They realize that maybe there's some hope, because I give them some hope, because there are things that we can reduce. So if people have done everything that they know about from the internet, from reading about EMFs, but they haven't taken care of the electric fields and the magnetic fields, when we take care of that with our work,
sleep better.
They sleep better for the first time. So let me tell you about electric fields, because that's really...
Is it true if you sleep on a mattress with springs that it actually amplifies the signals?
Yes, metal will amplify EMFs if they're there, but metal doesn't, but the solution is not to get rid of the metal. The solution is to get rid of the fields in your bedroom. So the bedroom is where we focus on, because that's where you spend 30 of your life, and that's where the recuperation occurs. So I would like to show you, so all of you know that in the middle of the night, the pineal gland releases melatonin, right? Now you guys tell me, I think we manufacture melatonin throughout the night, or throughout the day. Do we manufacture during the day and release it at night? Is that how it works? Or just manufacture it at night? In any event, the blood serum levels go up in the middle of the night. And you've all seen this Okay. So this is the pattern. So this is 24 hours. This is the dark time from here to here. This is night. This is the way it should be. I don't know if you can see this from where you are, but the blood serum level of melatonin rises substantially in the middle of the night, released from the pineal gland. In the presence of electric fields, it doesn't. That's one of the largest reasons why you don't release melatonin. There's another factor, and that is during sleep, we go through 4 or 5 cycles a night, and every cycle has 2 phases, non-REM, REM, okay, non-dreaming, dreaming. And you notice that in the first cycle, it's about 80-20. In the end of the night, it's 50-50. Isn't that interesting? What's happening here is if you only have 4 hours of sleep, the body is giving more preference to the non-REM portion of the body to make sure that the body gets some recuperation. Now, we're going from stage 1 to stage 4 to stage 1 to stage 4. We're yo-yoing up and down all night long, and you don't even know it. You're asleep the whole time, except when your bladder wakes you up and you go back to sleep, and that's it. Now, but the depth and quality of sleep is dependent upon how much time you get to stage 4 and stay there. Well, this is a typical sleep study. I just got off of Google image search. So this person has 20 minutes in stage 4, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and not again the rest of the night. That's not good. That's not normal, I don't think. I'm not an expert on this, but I would think that's not. So, because what I notice, what I hear from my clients consistently is that when we eliminate the electric fields and the other EMFs in their bedroom, they notice that they awaken less often, they awaken more refreshed, they have more energy, and a lot of their symptoms clear up. This is the most fundamental thing that we can do for people, and has been for 15 years. So what we teach our students is, it's incumbent upon us to create a zone in the sleeping area that is devoid of electric fields, magnetic fields, radio frequencies, and dirty electricity. Now most bedrooms, for those of you who have had to come to your home, you know that most bedrooms don't have magnetic fields. Because the magnetic fields are usually down on the first floor, under the floor, on the water pipe, or if there are wiring errors, then you shut things off when you go to sleep. So the loads are not there, so you don't have the magnetic fields from that. And even power line magnetic fields. This is an actual tracing from a home not far from here in Brentwood. I went there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we set this up. This is a colleague of ours from San Diego, and this 3-day sensors, so it's magnetic fields from power lines. So in the afternoon, it was 4 to 5 milligauss. It doubled in the evening. When everyone came home in January, 4:30, turn on the lights because it's dark, turn on your space heaters, and the magnetic fields went up because they were close and there was separation of the conductors. And then by the nighttime, it drops to below the afternoon level. Here's the morning. Here's the next day, back up again the next evening, back down again. So even that reduces it. But what we do have is electric fields in the bedroom. So what are electric fields? So, and you asked about this earlier. So magnetic fields are visualized as closed loop lines around electric current flow. I showed it to you earlier here. So when you have a wire in the wall, and you have current on the black wire, there's going to be a magnetic field around that whenever you turn on the load. Now, when you, and then you have current going back on the white wire. Those two wires have to have the same amount of current, or you're going to have a mismatch, and you're going to have a magnetic field coming into your room. But back to the power line here, magnetic fields are produced by current flow, and when you turn the current flow off, you don't have the magnetic field. But if you have the 2 wires side by side in a circuit, you won't have a magnetic field in the room no matter how much current you have flowing through here. But what is the electric field? The electric field is actually another vector that comes off at right angles. So if you can imagine here that even though we have a circle of magnetic field exposure around the flow of electricity, if we have this circle, but imagine the spokes of a wheel. Any one spoke is a vector of magnetic field. The corresponding electric field vector to that vector is 90 degrees to it, and that's shown here. So electric fields are produced by voltage, which is pressure, and they are the energization of the space around voltage differences. So now, one more factor to confuse your brain is the fact that electric and magnetic fields are either coupled, which is the case, and which is true up in the frequency of radio frequency, RF and wireless devices. But down here at the frequency of house wiring, they're not coupled. So that means, and here's what's important about that. If you go through a house with just a Gauss meter, and you say, I have no EMFs where I sleep. My bedroom has no EMFs. Or you have a tri-field meter. How many know what this is? Okay, so this is the older tri-field meter. And it's tri-field because it measures three fields, magnetic, electric, and radio. It's not sensitive enough for the electric and radio frequency settings. But it is sensitive, overly sensitive, in the magnetic field part. Now, the company, Alpha Labs, has come out with a new model. This is great. It's sensitive for all three. It's called the TF2 for tri-field number 2. And it's much more accurate than this one, about the same price, $160.
What's the company?
Well, Alpha Labs. You can get it from less EMF. It's a combination meter because it measures magnetic, electric, and radio frequencies, much more accurately than its predecessor. So you turn it on, and it measures, I know, it does that. It sings to you when it turns on. And so, and we want to be below 1 milligauss, and this is 0.3 here in this room, where I'm sitting, so that's a good number. Electric fields will be low. Well, not because since I'm holding this, actually they're high. Actually, when I put this here, you see that? Because, why? Because there's a magnetic field, an electric field in this, which is what I'm talking about now. I don't have anything plugged into this. This is just an extension cord. How many of you have this under your bed? Just sitting there.
You mean not plugged in?
No, plugged in at that end, but nothing plugged in at this end.
Oh, right.
Because this is live. Electric fields, anyone? Okay? And electric fields come out 6 to 8 feet, and then they collapse. It comes out and collapses. Now,
So what about your alarm clock? How far does that have to be away from you?
well, it's more than that, Ben. The cord of the alarm clock would give you the electric field, but also the cord of your lamp. So let's say this is a lamp.
So I have an alarm clock and I put it like 3 or 4, I think maybe 4 feet away, but it's plugged in right next to me.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. So sorry for the light again here, but I want to show you something. This is lit, and there's an electric field here. So I'm going to unplug it. There's still an electric field.
Right.
Okay? And this field comes out 6 to 8 feet and then collapses, and comes out and collapses. It's analogous to a garden hose. If you have a garden hose and you open the spigot, you allow 80 pounds of pressure to enter the hose to the nozzle. But there's no flow yet because you
So
have...
like we have an overhead light on our bed if we want to read, and we'll switch. But that's still giving off a signal even if
Well,
it's not on?
no. Okay, so if there's a switch in the cord, there will be no field.
Like in the wall, right?
Well, then you're cutting off the power all the way over there. There is no voltage then from there on out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's-
Well, what
that's
about
the
to get
thing.
to that switch?
Okay, so in
That
that,
switch is like, right in the wall, right behind where we sleep.
so when we consult with people who are sensitive or in our practice who want low fields, low electric fields, and I'm consulting on a new home or remodel or gutting, so we're looking at the plans, we go to the home site where the framing is there, the walls are open, there's no electricity yet, and I'll walk through with my client, the owner, the architect, the builder, and the electrician, and we'll plan where to put the cutoff switch for that very reason. Because if the power comes from the breaker panel over in the garage to the door, and then we can put the switch there, and that's one option. It's the cheapest option, least expensive. And then from anything from there on out is dead. And a lot of people say, I don't need anything more fancy, I'll just flip it off there, there's enough light coming in, I'm never in the dark really, in this urban environment, and then they sleep like they're camping.
But like we did this on purpose because I want to read in bed and then turn it
Okay,
off.
so then the other option is to run a circuit from that point, a switch light, from there in this, to switches in the wall on either side of the bed that you can turn on and off.
What is that?
This is shielded cable. This is unshielded, and this is shielded. So let's
So you're saying the wires in the wall, if they're covered with that, they're not gonna give off that same signal?
correct. That's right. That's exactly right. So let me finish this, and then I'll talk
But
about.
under normal circumstances, they don't do that, right?
Let me finish, because this is important for you guys as practitioners, for your clients' communication. So imagine this garden hose that has 80 pounds of pressure. When you squeeze the nozzle, you feel the kick in your hand because there's pressure there. When you let go of the nozzle, you feel the kick because there's still pressure in that hose. That's the point I'm trying to make. There is pressure, there's voltage right up to the switch of your lamp. And that field is coming out 6 or 8 feet. Now, what are the health implications of that? So, first of all, this, and I know you can't see this from where you are, but imagine that this is in the wall. Even if you unplug all the lights, if this is the kind of wiring you have, going from outlet to outlet, it's not the outlet that causes the magnetic field, or electric field that we're talking about. It's the hot wire in the plastic wiring, because this is not shielded. So that field, hold that thought, that field comes out 6 or 8 feet and then collapses. Comes out 6 or 8 feet and collapses. But it's alternating its polarity. Why? Because of, and I skipped this part, which I always go over with my clients. Electricity has this configuration, and it has for 100 years since Tesla got Edison to change from DC to AC back in Brooklyn in the 1890s. So it goes from 0 to maximum to 0 to maximum, but it's positive, negative, positive, negative. That's a sine wave. So this field that comes out, that sweeps over your body in this here, so this field that comes out from either the lamp cord or from the wall, from the circuit in the wall, has a positive force that extends out 6 or 8 feet, and it's very weak 6 or 8 feet out, but it's very strong close up, and your body's in there. You're in that field. So what is happening to your physiology? Now, this is the part that you guys are going to understand well as practitioners, health practitioners. You know that the average cell is filled with ions. Potassium, sodium, positively charged and negatively charged. And what is happening to those free ions in the cell, in the interstitial fluid, in the intracellular fluid, even at the level of atoms in terms of protons and electrons? These particles, either macroscopic or microscopic, subatomic, molecular, ionic, are being attracted and repulsed from this force. This is very crucial, and it's happening to everyone, and it has for 100 years since we've had electricity deployed. And this is the big factor that is unknown in the whole EMF community. I call it the unknown EMF. I have so many clients who say, Oram, I can't sleep, and it has to be the smart meter. But I opted out, because we can do that here in California. But it has to be my neighbor's smart, because all they're thinking about is a smart meter. They have tunnel vision, because that's all they're reading about, or a few years ago. So they're convinced of that. This lady told me that, and she just had me come back last week, and I said, gosh, 4 years ago, you called me up the next day and you said, I was just nodding my head, because that's what she said. She was convinced she was not sleeping because of the smart meter outside. So I found this, I just nodded my head, because I knew what the problem was. It wasn't what she thought. And I showed her which breaker to shut off. She shut them off, and the next morning she slept, or woke up and slept for the first time since she moved into that house. And she called me up and told me that. And I said to her just a few days ago, I've been quoting you, not by name, but for 4 years now, telling everyone that this is the experience that you have. And there are so many people who have this as a missing link for them. So you guys need to understand.
You're just going to go out in your backyard and find your breaker box to go to sleep.
We do. So one of the things that we do during our consultations is a test, just did it today, where we have our clients hold on to a cylinder, which is in the box here, which is connected to this. And they have a walkie-talkie in one hand, and then this device in the other, and they're giving me numbers over the walkie-talkie. I'm outside of the breaker panel, and I turn all the breakers off, and we go down to a low level, and then I turn each one on, and I ask them if there's any change or what the number is. And when I get to the right breaker, it goes up. So I mark that, shut it off, keep going, and there's one or two more perhaps that they don't know about, because some people know about this to some degree. They'll shut off the one breaker, but they're missing the one that's underneath the floor. Okay? So they don't understand why they're not getting benefits from it. So we do the test and they've missed a couple. So what we do then is we find out which breakers, and then we hire one of these guys to come in and give them the bid on a remote switch they can press at the bedside table, which turns off 2 breakers outside. It's really convenient. And because I need, what's the biggest factor that you guys need with your patients and clients? Compliance. I need compliance with my clients. Because if I don't, if it's like what Ben said, it's not going to happen. You know.
Is the remote wireless?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. So I tell my clients, if you're really electrically sensitive, can you handle a garage door opener? And they said, yeah. Well, this is no different than that. So it really doesn't cause ill health in and of itself. And what it does is it produces a great deal of benefit. So what are the benefits that I hear? Improved sleep, not waking up as often, awakening with more vitality, more energy, not falling asleep in class, the kids more calm energy, and then physical maladies, physical symptoms actually start to clear up a lot, big time. And so it's a real, and then for people who have more serious illness, chronic fatigue, cancer, it's estimated that by Larry Gust, who is in Ventura, another practitioner here, my teacher and my colleague, that if you have both high electric and magnetic fields, you have an 11-fold increase in cancer risk from having the two together in your sleeping areas. So this is crucial for us. We want to make sure that the sleeping area is devoid of those 4 fields. Now, there's one other part of this, and that is in the daytime, you want your computer to have a grounded plug. If your computer has a 2-prong plug, you're not grounded, and that causes a significant increase in energy expenditure on your part to be there. And a lot of people don't understand that.
How about one of those battery backups? Does it make it worse or better?
Well, the battery backup is hardwired in, but it only goes on battery only when the power goes out. I know the thing about a battery backup is a huge magnetic field that comes out 3 or 4 feet under your feet.
Oh, really?
So I wanted to go into the electric fields because that's a very important part of our work that really nobody knows about. Thank you. That nobody knows about. And I've already mentioned the magnetic fields. So you now know more about EMFs than a lot of people who are out there. And what they're doing is good and necessary, but the electric and magnetic field part of it is really crucial, and a lot more people are learning about it. So,
What about what's inside your garage, your hybrid car?
when you're riding or driving in a hybrid car, there are EMFs that are specific to cars. I have an article just on that. The big type of EMF that you have with electric cars, and a hybrid has an electric component, is dirty electricity, because it's varying the voltage. It's not straight 120 volts like here or in your house. It's varying, 40 to 80. It's constant. This is what Spark Burmaster told me. It's constantly. Our teacher, an electrical engineer from Wisconsin, who was my teacher and is our guru on all this. He said it's the varying dirty electricity that really drives some of our electrically sensitive clients nuts. Now, Hyla asked me to check out her car. Can I tell her about this experience?
I don't remember.
The Lexus you had some years ago, there were very few EMFs, magnetic fields in that Lexus that you had. Remember that a few years ago? And Tesla actually shields their magnetic fields, and I've ridden in several Teslas and tested them for clients, and I have very low magnetic fields when we drive.
What if you get in a train that's powered by electricity overhead?
There will be high, or a third rail, there will be very high magnetic fields the whole way. Planes are full of magnetic fields and Wi-Fi. Oh my God. I mean, the thing right behind your head is transmitting. The screen. You're looking at a screen, well, that's somebody's headrest. You know, so electrically sensitive plants cannot go in planes.
Are you saying that hybrid cars differ from purely electrical cars?
No, but hybrid or purely electrical,
Just different model, different cars are different.
yes, they differ from gas-powered cars. Now, but gas-powered cars have their own huge magnetic fields. Some do, some don't. It depends on where the alternator is. No car is, they're all unique. And
Is there a rating system somewhere?
no one's had the time to put that together.
So you said the Tesla
You
is
well,
really good.
you
What
just
about
have
the
to get it.
Prius?
You have to get in the car and just test it. I've been in a few Priuses and they were pretty high. There's one Lexus, I remember that. It's the only hybrid that I've been in, your Lexus. I know, I know. It was 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, that didn't, that's the only one that didn't have it. So
So
that,
is there a way to fix the dirty electricity in a car?
Is there a way to fix the dirty electricity in a car?
no. We have filters for homes, and these are individual models, and then the gentleman in the back can install, William and everybody can install a whole house filtration system for you that's much better. It's the best, especially from Noble
What
Electric.
about for the car?
We don't have anything for the car for that. So here's what I tell my clients who are symptomatic. First of all, there are a couple of people who I know who literally have, they bought a 1980s Mercedes and they started up, and this one guy lifts up the hood and he disconnects the starter and he has no feels, and then it's the only way that he can drive that thing around. All right, it's a very simple car. They're all loaded up now with Wi-Fi and GPS and Bluetooth. In my Volkswagen Passat, I turn off the Bluetooth, still transmits. I tried to turn off the Wi-Fi on the Samsung TV, still transmits. Apple TVs now, still transmits. Ecobee thermostat, still transmits. It's all, Wi-Fi has been disabled. It says it right there. But my meter still shows that it's still transmitting.
So there's no way to remediate the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth in the car either?
No, so I called Volkswagen, the dealer right here in Santa Monica. They said, well, we don't know how to do it. Call Volkswagen of America in New Jersey. I called them in New Jersey. They said, call the dealer. We don't know. So then finally somebody said, it comes in the communication on the radio that we buy from another person, another company, excuse me, and put it in. They're the ones who put the Bluetooth in. You have to contact them, and they're in Korea somewhere or whatever. So, yes.
When you do your home eval, do you ever like prioritize what is the total toxic load based on the different devices? Like maybe this is the most, I'm not sure, probably.
No, that's
Versus
it.
a computer versus, I mean, everything has something. So is there a way to prioritize for an individual what the most amount of toxic load it is that we get exposed to?
That's a very good question. The question is, when we do our EMF evaluations, can we prioritize the toxic load that that house has? That's exactly what I do every time. That's what we do. We tailor we don't have a pat evaluation. I mean, we have our protocols that we follow, but there are specific things that we, are details that we get into. No two evaluation set of recommendations is ever the same. And I'm always constantly aware of who my clients are and where they are in the spectrum of how far they need to go with this, because we're recommending some really radical changes. And we're telling, people call me up because they say my tri-meter has a high number. And so I tell them on the phone, well, I'm going to look at that for you. But there are 3 other types of EMFs that I'm going to teach you about because you're interested in health and they have symptoms. I say that's the case. And so I want them to understand this. When I get into the Wi-Fi, they don't want to hear it. They said, don't take my Wi-Fi away from me. They're sick because they don't want to be different. And they don't know. And yet, I suspect that it's affecting them. And that's the hardest part. When I come to a person's home and they have symptoms and they're not going to follow through, and I know that this is not going to end well, because, and you know, my goal is to help. If I do my job right, the couple will have a serious conversation about this, because it's going to mean that they're going to be different. They're not going to be like what they see on TV. They're not going to be like their friends. They're not going to be like the way they've been. They're not going to have the same conveniences. But we have hardwired connections. There are many people in the industry who prefer that. All these internet technology and low voltage contractors, they want miles of Ethernet cables in the house because they want their components for reliability. And a lot of clients tell me, everything's faster since I made this change. But what I tell them is, don't take my word for it. Look at the data for yourself and see what Europe is doing about this. Those countries that don't have a lock on the campaign finance system and the media and academia
And who pays for their health insurance?
well, they do. That's the point. The people, the taxpayers pay for health care delivery. You all know this better than I do. In other countries, we're the only country that has,
We're on our own.
well, you're on your own. You are on your own. This is a corporatocracy. And then the other thing is, I tell them, you will thank yourselves 5 to 10 years from now for listening to that guy back in 2018, when you start getting calls from your friends who say, my son is just diagnosed with a brain tumor, because it is happening. That there's a 4-fold increase in leukemia in children. Cancer is on the rise. Oh, there's this great, let me just run through a couple things here. This is really useful. So, first of all, 2 years ago, France was the first country in the world to ban Wi-Fi in all daycare centers and nurseries for all children in France. Now, why did they do that if all these technologies are so safe? And then this year, they're banning cell phones. Aggressive brain tumors on the rise in England. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but benign tumors are on the decline over the last 20 years. Benign tumors are on the decline in England in the last 20 years. Aggressive tumors are on the rise over the last 20 years. They're canceling each other out, which is the top line, and that's what gets reported on the news, that there's no change in the cancer rate in England in the last 20 years. Okay. There is a statement here, 2015, Brussels International Scientific Declaration on Electromagnetic Hypersensitivity and Multiple Chemical Sensitivity. They're paying attention to this in Europe. And I know the Academy of ACAM has a position statement on EMFs in this country. The alternative medical community. This is a very interesting and important article. This is from The Nation magazine in March by 2 investigative journalists, and the title of the article is "How Big Wireless Made Us Think That Cell Phones Are Safe: A Special Investigation." They did a 1-year investigation and revealed all of the underbelly of what the cell industry is not sharing with us. And then here we have 200 scientists warn of potential serious health effects of 5th-generation cell coverage.
Fake news.
And then finally, how many have heard of Generation Zapped? Some of you have. All right. This is a wonderful documentary. This is the one thing that you guys should watch. Or okay, so
Can we get a couple questions?
oh yeah, we have some more time. So Generation Zapped, I highly recommend that you all look at that on my website. That's right at the top of the homepage, with numerous ways of getting it, streaming it, or getting the actual DVD copy.
Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of time, and there is a wealth of information.
Okay, we're gonna hang out outside there and talk. We'll be around for a while.
So my thought was, maybe you could give us like 5 to 10 practical solutions
Okay.
for people, so that when we're talking to patients,
Mhm.
that we can say, why don't you try, because obviously the first thing people should do is, well, let's refer to you guys. But what can we do at the outset until we can get an appointment
Well,
for the next 5 years?
Okay, yeah, and I'm going out of town next week to teach.
Yeah. So give us 5 to 10.
I'm booked the week
5 to
after
10
that, so I'm
things
not
that
even
we can
available till the middle of September. So,
And things that patients will do, like, you can't tell them not to use their cell phone.
well, okay, so the most important thing is to tell them, read up on this. You don't even know that this exists, because, okay, all right.
2.
What you gonna do about their cell phone use?
Put things
Well-
on, how about put things on airplane, like people will keep their iPhones on their nightstand at night.
Yeah,
So putting it on airplane, like for you, using the alarm on the iPhone with it on airplane, is that better than having 'having a clock radio in the room near him.
well, okay, so, okay, so, 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 so Well, if you have had us come to your home and we're comprehensive in what we do over the 6 or 8 hours that we're
Okay,
there.
but this is before you
Practical.
come.
And, well, hold on, because we want the electric fields to be eliminated. So you're going to have to have a battery operated clock. You see where I'm going with this?
So the recommendation is use a battery?
No, the recommendation is to get the breaker off in your room.
No, but what do we use for an alarm?
Well, no, but see,
Battery operated
Battery operated clock, that's what we should use.
yeah, well, if the power's going to be on, you could have, there'll be a transformer in a digital clock. So there'll be a magnetic field from that, but that drops off within a couple of feet.
You can have that on the other side of the room.
Yeah, put that on the other side of the room.
What does the other side of the room mean? Like
Okay, so
over there?
so in the interim basis, I appreciate it. So unplug all the cords around you within 6 or 8 feet of your bed.
Okay.
All right, that's number 2. Don't charge your phone next to your bed.
3.
And because if you unplug that phone and leave the cord there, that the electric field from that cord is just as strong as, okay. So
Unplug everything.
unplug everything. Don't have a cordless telephone base unit next to your bed or a Wi-Fi router anywhere near your bedroom, because those things transmit all the time.
If you have a long cord and you plug in your phone and you put it on airplane mode, is it safer or not?
Well, wait. A long cord.
If your modem is in the other room or your router's in the other room and you have a long cord.
Well, but the cord from a modem or router would be for a laptop. You mean?
No,
But you mean?
phone.
Oh, you mean if you use your special little gizmo
Yeah.
and you plug your phone directly into, hardwired into the internet, and then
Is
you,
it safe? Talking about Ethernet?
Yes. Now that raises a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I do need to mention, it's very important, that you can have strong electric fields on the Ethernet cable if it's not shielded. This is special Cat 6, Cat 7 shielded cable. You notice it's shiny? It's metal. This is different. It's not that much more expensive than the other. You need an Ethernet grounding adapter kit. So this is another important thing. If you're going to do this workaround that we talked about with your laptop, either with the laptop or with the iPad or iPhone, and you're not plugged in with the power cord, which grounds you, because we want you to have that's another thing to add to your list. If you have a Mac, okay, do not take the cord off of it, which is in here. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's this cord here that has this thing on the end of it, you know what I mean? On the white transformer. Do not remove this, because at the other end of this, which is buried in this bag here, is a grounded cord, a plug with a ground on it. But what does this get replaced with? A 2-pronged device that has 2 little blades that swing out. You lose your grounding, and you put your hands on that laptop now, and you're drained. People say, "Oh, why am I so tired?" Because your electric fields are sky high through the roof. Now, if you don't have the power cord plugged in, which grounds you, and you're only using this, and you're on battery, I have found that people have replaced one EMF with another, because they do this in order to put the device in airplane mode. If it's Windows 8 or 10, you put it in airplane mode. That shuts off the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. On a Mac.
So that's 5. So the computer should be plugged in.
Yes. And on a Mac. Okay, 6 is on a Mac. Thank you. You're helping me.
What if
for
it's
this
plugged into a
course.
circuit protector?
Well, as long as it has this kind of a plug on the end of it, and the surge protector, you should get one of these too, Osh. I was going to say,
what is that?
This is a circuit
It's
tester,
every year.
and you want these two. You want.
Tell you whether the ground works or not.
Yeah. So this is what it should look like. Oh, look at that. There's no ground. You don't see this very often. This is an ungrounded cord for some reason over there. It's not grounded because it has a 3-prong plug on it. This is not lit. You see that? You don't often see that, but that's important. You don't want to see this condition. You want both amber lights to be lit, and you want the outer one to be as bright as the middle one. Okay, so it's important that your laptop be grounded, and when you have an Ethernet cable, and you put it on battery, you must use shielded Ethernet cable. This is all on my website on the safer use of computers page in the radio frequency section and the electric field section. And so this is what's called, and it's very clever. This is a shielded Ethernet cable. This goes into the router or the network extender that you plug in, and then this is a shielded coupler, has a jack on this side and on this side, and this guy, Sean Kranish in Illinois at electrohealth.com, he soldered a ground wire to this metal case, and then he has the green ground wire attached to the ground that you plug in, and you'll have a third blade here. And these are dummies. This is the one that's active. It's attached to this cord. And then you have to complete that with shielded cable all the way to your adapter, which goes into your phone. I know this is overwhelming. We'll help you with it. But then you can put your phone in airplane mode, and you can be on the internet, and there's no smoke and no electric fields either. That's what this allows. This is all on my website.
Number 7.
Okay, in your kitchen, if you have in front of your stove, get a Gauss meter. So
Electric stove or gas?
either one. It's going to have a clock, and if it's a digital clock, what's right behind it? And remind me, I have to give you something that was in that bag that you gave me before you leave. Okay. So a little card from an old car you had, if you want it back. I have it. Okay. And so get one of these, because this measures magnetic fields. This is a tri-field TF2, and it measures magnetic fields very accurately in 3 dimensions, 3 axes. It doesn't matter how you hold this, you get the same number, that's important. And then electric fields, it's one way to measure. The body voltage method is better. And then it also measures radio frequencies as well. In terms of the stove, what do you need in order to take 120 volts, which comes into the stove, and drop it down to the 6 volts that powers the liquid crystal display, the digital display? A transformer. That transformer is usually right behind the clock, but that transformer has a magnetic field that comes out 3 or 4 feet, and you could be standing there with a pregnant abdomen in a 10 to 15 to 30 milligauss magnetic field every time you cook. Not good. Not a good idea. You must measure every stove and make sure you don't have that field there. I've even seen gas stoves with no electronics visible with a magnetic field coming out.
But what do you do about it?
You stand to the side and you don't buy that stove, or and it's hard because I can't get into the showroom. So visually, look for one with the cluster of electronics and clock in the back. That's what you do. Dishwashers, in the lid, they all have electronics in the lid. Not Bosch. A couple of companies are starting to put the transformer, not in the back, but right in the front, right in the lid. So you're standing there at the sink with the dishwasher next to it, with a big field right here, or doing food prep. So we ask the electricians to put a little kill switch underneath the sink, in case that's the model you get, because you never know. But I have an article on my website on kitchen appliances and EMFs. There's another one. Oh God, it slipped from my mind. Oh yes, I know. So you really should get a radio frequency detector.
Is it better to use a gas stove than an electric stove?
Generally, yeah. Now, as good as the radio frequency detector is in this, but this has noise, but it only goes up because of the reading going up. But these 2 little guys, they're about $150 to $180, $90. They have the actual sound of the EMFs, of the radio frequencies in the room. This is one of the most accurate, affordable radio frequency detectors now on the market. Just came out a month or 2 ago.
What's it called?
Safe and Sound by Safe Living Technologies. Rob Metzinger in Canada, Toronto, Canada. A colleague of ours, I teach with him, and he came up with this with some engineers. So it's good to have one of these. And here's another one that's very similar. This is by Alistair Phillips. It's very similar, and about the same price range. So this is called the Acousticom 2, and its bigger brother is the acoustic meter.
And is that doing something that trimeter's not doing?
The difference between these, that's a good question, Ben. Hold this. Okay, so the tri-meter, the tri-field meter, the TF2, which is much more sensitive than this guy, the 100XC. I don't recommend this to anybody. This one is great. The only thing is, these two are more sensitive. If radio frequencies are your issue, then you want to get one of these. One of these is the same price as that, so it's a bit of an investment. But these are much more accurate than this. And the sound you hear on this is the real sound of the radio frequency device, because and this is a much more expensive and sensitive model that we use, but these will actually give you the sound. And you remember, routers sound like a helicopter, cell phones have a high-pitched sound of their own. So you can get one of these and start to become familiar with this. You could tell, all right, so.
That was 8.
Yeah, okay, so I told you to unplug the cords around the bed.
Yeah.
How about headphones?
Yeah, okay, so air tube earphone. Here it is. This actually has plastic in the last 6 inches. This is a good thing to use, okay? And the microphone is right there. And then, so hold the phone at arm's length. And then number 9 should be
What's that called, that piece, the headphone?
air tube earphone. Number 9 would be the case. I don't know what happened to it, but the case. And you can see Monica. Are you leaving?
No, I just.
You're just standing, okay. Monica, so what is your website?
It's EMFlivingharmonyproject.com.
EMFlivingharmonyproject.com. Custom made in LA, in leather, by people.
Or cork.
Or cork?
Or cork. If you don't wear animal skin, we can do it in leather or cork. And they attenuate the radio frequency coming out of your cell phone, all cell phones, by 99+%, depending on where you are.
And they're stylish. And this is just, a dark brown, but they're really fashion
They're
conscious.
very fashion forward, yes.
So that's a good thing for me.
Now, can you put the brand of the air tube?
Well, there are several brands on the
Do you
market.
have one on your website?
Yes, if you go to EMF products and order codes and click on the less EMF link, then you'll see less EMF order codes. And those are broken down by magnetic field, electric fields, magnetic fields, radio frequencies, and direct electricity. So in the radio frequency shielding section, I have a link for the air tube earphone. Now, I have a link to your website, Monica, on the EMF products and order codes page. If you scroll down past the less EMF and other icons, you'll see links to a picture of one of her cases.
The question over here.
I have one more question. In the car, what's the safest way to be able to talk on the phone? If you have to talk on the phone, what's the safest way? It's like I've got something on the dashboard that's obviously Wi-Fi. I could do an air tube with it on the seat. I mean, what's the best way?
Yeah, we'll see. It's
I can open the
difficult.
windows,
Well, okay, for one thing, keep the phone above the level of the metal. And I have to pack all this stuff up within the next 15 minutes.
What about solar panels?
I will answer that question outside.
They're closing the library and they're closing the garage at 9.
Oh,
No, the garage closes at 11.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it said 9 on the.
No.
So they close here, you have to pack up.
Yeah.
They're serious.
I know, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Solar panels, can you talk?
Solar panels. So, okay, the main EMF from solar panels is dirty electricity. And there are some models that are better than others. The Sunboy from Germany is less, because they know about this and they designed it for that. Then, but there's still some. It depends on your sensitivity. If you're electrically sensitive, you have no business thinking about solar panels as far as I'm concerned. I have too many clients who cannot be in the house once, okay. But for everybody else, it's not that big a deal. And you can get an inline dirty electricity filter from these gentlemen in the back here. Yes, ma'am.
What if you live in a condo?
Condos have all sorts of EMF that you share with your neighbors. A lot depends on whether the wiring is metal or, a lot of buildings have metal wiring. Like if it's a commercial code, then you don't have to shut any breakers off. I have several clients. The house I live in, you know, that my girlfriend grew up in, built in the 50s with metal wiring, just like this. We don't shut any breakers off. We sleep like we're camping when we have nothing plugged in around our bed. Actually, we have one light, and it's on one of the little flicker switches at the outlet. That's it.
But there's 80 routers.
Hmm?
But it's 80 routers for hours.
Read my article on my website, Wi-Fi Networks in Your Health. Because in that article, it talks about the fact that that radio frequencies drop off exponentially with distance. And even though your phone shows that you have 3 or 4 bars, you could be as low as 1/10 of a microwatt per meter squared. Because the strength of the signal drops with distance and with walls. But these devices are so sophisticated, they can connect with a signal that is lower than a health risk for us. If you go hardwired, let's say you're successful at going hardwired with your own equipment. I tell my clients, your biggest problem is your own phone, which has to be on in order for you to know how many networks you have. And they're saying, but Oram, you've convinced me and we've made some good changes here, but I still have, there are 15 networks, look at all these. And I say, turn off your phone and let me show you what the level is. And it's only 4 microwatts per meter squared. We say 10 or less is okay for most people. And they say, okay, but they have a hard time accepting that. Because when I leave, this goes with me. They have this showing 18 networks. And to them, but I say, but when you turn this off, because this is sending out a lot of signal, right? And all you have left is this. When you turn this off, I turn that on and there's no signal coming from, I can't detect it. It's really low.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to wrap
Real
it.
quick, if there's a tower near your house, is that a bad thing, or is it getting?
No, that may not be a good thing at all. Yeah, unfortunately. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Oram.